Good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting for August 2nd, 2021. Before I call us to order, I'd just like to make a special note tonight about the passing of Vernon Kolpeck, who passed away peacefully at his home on July 28th. He was a City Council member here in Cedar Falls from 2000 to 2003, highly regarded in the community, Korean War veteran, a Cedar Falls police officer who was shot and blinded in the line of duty on June 10th, 1966. So with his passing, we certainly grieve with his family and friends, and want to note that there will be a celebration of life for him at the Cedar Falls Ambets on August 14th from 12 to 4 p.m. So if we could just have a moment of silence before beginning. So I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Miller?
Here.
DeBoer?
Here.
Cruz?
Here.
Harding?
Here.
Dara?
Here.
Sires?
Here.
Dunn?
Here.
All members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting of July 19th?
So moved.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. Do we have any agenda revisions tonight, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And if council will consent to this, I'd like to change the order tonight of special presentations and public forum, just to move the presentations through first. So are there any objections to that? Okay, thank you. So we will do special presentations first. And with that, item 2 here is a proclamation recognizing August 8th through 14th, 2021 as National Health Center Week. And tonight we have with us Christine Kemp, who is the CEO of People's Community Health Clinic. If you'd like to come forward, ma'am. I don't know if I have a small mic tonight, so I'll speak loud. So this proclamation tonight is for National Health Center Week, August 8th through 14th, 2021. Whereas our nation's network of community health centers make up the country's largest primary care network, with 30 million Americans served annually in over 14,000 communities, including 20,000 people at People's Community Health Clinic. And whereas community health centers are on the front lines of emergency healthcare crises, addressing the opioid epidemic, providing access to care for our nation's veterans, and responding to public health threats in the wake of natural disasters and global pandemics. And whereas People's Community Health Clinic has provided high-quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventive health care to the Cedar Valley since 1976, having a significant and lasting positive impact on the health of underserved and vulnerable populations. And whereas it is fitting for Cedar Falls residents to celebrate the success of People's Community Health Clinic and to recognize it as an irreplaceable community health resource benefiting the entire Cedar Valley. Now therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of the City of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim August 8th through 14th, 2021 as National Health Center Week in Cedar Falls, and encourage all residents to celebrate People's Community Health Clinic's positive, lasting legacy in our community. I further encourage residents to learn about and support the upcoming People's Community Health Clinic Capital Campaign to extend the clinic campus and expand services to the Cedar Valley in the decades ahead. Signed this 14th day of July, 2021, Robert Henry Mayor. So this is for you now. Do a mayor handshake here. And that's official. And would love to give you a few moments to give some words on the capital campaign. So just right up here.
Go on the other side?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. We have started our capital campaign to expand our Waterloo facility. I don't know if any of you have been over there, but we're over on Franklin Street in Waterloo. Right now we're at a 40,000 square foot building, and we're adding on another 20,000 square feet. It will completely renovate our urgent care. It'll add a whole new pod for our adult services, expand our pharmacy so we can have drive-up services, add room for mammography, which we do not have right now, and then also have a whole behavioral health department for counseling for our behavioral health unit. So we're really excited about that. And then with community, if I can talk about the Community Health Center Week.
Certainly.
That's next week, and we have two main events that are happening there that I'd like to invite you to or to participate in. The first one is on Monday, and we have what we call our free garage sale, where we are accepting slightly used donated items if you want to donate. For anyone who comes, they get a bag, and they can fill the bag with whatever they can fit in the bag, and it's all free for people in our neighborhood and our community for those who need it. And then our big tent event is on Wednesday. We have a lot of nonprofit people who come, and we have tents all over our campus for that day. We grill and provide free food for people, and from 11 to 1 o'clock, we celebrate the community and the neighborhood and feed them, and then they can also go around and talk to all of the nonprofits that are there representing their businesses and how they can help them in the need that they can. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate the proclamation.
Certainly, and I was benefited from a tour about a month ago, a little less than that, with the CEO and her staff, and I was so impressed with the quality of the care, the capabilities of the facilities, and I can just see from my own tour how much that additional space is needed. So we look forward to supporting you as a community on that. Thank you. So with that, I'll move us over into public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. So does anyone from the gallery wish to speak tonight? Seeing none, does anyone from Zoom wish to speak tonight?
We do. Ishan?
Okay, Mr. Vajpayee, if you could give name and address for the record, please, sir.
Ishan Vajpayee, 3831 Conver Lane. I just have to comment on some things that were brought up in the past committee of the whole. To one council person's point, I have plenty of anecdotes from friends back in the day, and still of them having to circle the downtown area to find a parking space behind their building on weekends and during special events, because most landlords aren't reserving spaces for their tenants. So the idea that there's all this parking being wasted on reserved spaces for residents, I think, is a little incorrect, because so many of the units aren't even required to have parking because they're above commercial spaces. And then a lot of places just don't reserve anyway. So I think there's already some shared parking by default there. Another council person mentioned that this would increase commercial space, commercial parking spaces, because now there's going to be minimum shared parking for commercial spaces, but it's only for upper stories, and for very large buildings too. I mean, under 5,000 square feet has no minimum shared parking. That's you can put a pretty big business in there with lots of customers that need parking and be under 5,000 square feet. So I don't know, there's very few examples of businesses that would actually be adding commercial parking under the new ordinance, I would say. So, I mean, to another council person's point, what this wants to do is encourage more commercial development with, again, no minimum parking, and for only the biggest multi-level buildings, there would be the shared parking, but not for other buildings. And then decrease the rental parking. So increase the density, reduce the parking all across the board. Don't think it's a great recipe. Also, I wonder how much of the assumptions and calculations made by the consultants depend somewhat on the city being able to institute, implement, and manage a paid parking system, which, with all due respect, we've found ourselves incapable of doing. The parking system that was deployed, I don't know if it's because people don't want to pay for parking in this town. I don't really believe that to be true. I think it's that people, even technology savvy people, found the parking system implemented, the app, the kiosk, the signage, totally unworkable and frustrating. And so, you know, before we go in and accept recommendations from consultants that have been formed over the last 18 months, I think probably fairly based on some assumption that we can manage parking better somewhat through paid parking, we should really look back and think, can we? Because I don't think we can. We gave up that fight pretty quickly. Those are my observations. I think it takes a really better, more precise look at the code that's being proposed to realize that really this is going to be, these extra spaces are going to be built on the back of certain residential properties and not all of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boschberry. Any other speakers for public forum tonight?
Nothing in Zoom.
Okay, and final opportunity within the gallery. So seeing none, I'll consider the public forum closed and bring us over to special order of business, which is item 3, continuation of the public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 CDBG sidewalk infill project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication? Do we have any written communications filed, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So for staff comments, we have Mr. Dave Wicke, the city engineer. So the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor, City Council. As already stated, this is a continuation from last council meeting's public hearing on the 2021 CDBG sidewalk infill project. This project consists of constructing sidewalks with Portland cement concrete, and involved also is grading, some curb and gutter, installation of pedestrian ramps where required, and site restoration. The project is estimated to cost $176,242 and is funded by the Community Development Block Grant Funds. If you recall from last time, we asked to extend this and keep this public hearing open for republication of the public notice, just to keep updated with the updated language in the federal guidelines of the program.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Wicke. Do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none in the gallery. Any on Zoom?
Nothing in Zoom.
Okay, so I will consider the public hearing closed and bring us over to Part E, which is resolution approving and adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost of the 2021 CDBG sidewalk infill project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and seconded. Open it for council discussion and questions. Seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that does pass. Takes us to Part 4, which is a public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 Seal Coat project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Then, Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed on this?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And so for our staff comments tonight, we have Mr. Matt Tolan. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Tonight's public hearing is for the 2021 Seal Coat project. This project involves seal coating 13 streets, covering 29,000 square yards and 24,000 square yards of single-lane drives within 3 cemeteries and 7 parking lots. The total estimated cost of construction for this project is $143,728.14. Funding for this project is provided by the city's street construction fund and also the local option sales tax.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tolan. Do we have any public comments from this item from within the gallery? And on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, so I'll consider the public hearing closed for this item and bring us over to Part E, which is a resolution approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 Seal Coat project. Is there a motion to approve? Motion and seconded. Any council discussion or questions for Mr. Tolan? Seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item 5, which is a public hearing on the proposed plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 street patching project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication? The motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that passes and brings us over to written communications. Do we have any filed, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, Mr. Tolan will be giving us staff comments for this item. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This public hearing is for the 2021 street patching project. This project involves the construction of 46 utility patches on existing city streets. Work will include 644 square yards of removal and replacement of existing pavement, 118 tons of asphalt patches, 105 linear feet of curb and gutter removal and replacement of driveway approaches and pedestrian ramps. The total estimated cost of construction for this project is $288,409.85. The project will be funded by Cedar Falls Utilities.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tolan. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this public hearing item? Seeing none, out in Zoom?
None in Zoom.
None? Okay. So I'll consider this public hearing closed and take us over to Part 5E, which is a resolution approving and adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 street patching project. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Council discussion or questions? Seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you, Mr. Tolan and Mr. Wiki. So that brings us to old business, which is item 6 to start. That's passing ordinance 2992, amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances relative to the speed limit on certain portions of Viking Road upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Open it for council questions. And does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Okay.
None in Zoom.
Final comments. All right, so it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass and will be part of the city code. Item 7 is passing ordinance 2993, amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances relative to parking restrictions in municipal parking lots upon its second consideration. Is there a motion? Let's see how we do this. Is there a motion to approve the suspending the rules?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that motion if we can.
Okay, great. So that's been motioned and seconded to suspend the rules to be considered at 3 separate meetings. And this will require 6 aye votes. So for this suspension, all in favor, say aye.
We need
Aye.
roll
Is
call.
that correct? Is a roll call? Okay. So this does require a roll call vote to suspend the rules. Thank you.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so those rules are suspended and allows us to consider this as the third reading as well. And then it would, if it's passed, it'll be passed tonight rather than waiting another for the next council meeting. So let's see.
A motion?
Yeah, I need that motion. Did I do that out of order?
Move to
No.
pass ordinance
On its third
2993
reading.
on its third and final reading.
Okay, great.
Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open it for council discussion or questions for this item. Seeing none, does anyone from the gallery wish to speak? Seeing none, from Zoom?
one in Zoom.
Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded to amend Chapter 23 for parking restrictions in municipal lots. And any final questions or comments from council? Then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we'll look over to new business, and that's our consent calendar, where the following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member wish to pull an item 8 through 11? Seeing none. Does anyone from the gallery wish to pull an item 8 through 11? And from Zoom, anything?
Nothing.
Okay. So I will read all these together then. Item 8 is receiving and filing the resignation of Craig Swartgefer as a member of the Community Center and Senior Services Board, and we certainly thank Craig for his service these last many years. 9 is receiving and filing the work session minutes of July 19th relative to North Cedar Falls Drainage and the Human Rights Commission joint meeting. Item 10 is receiving and filing departmental monthly reports of June 2021. And then item 11 is approving applications for beer permits and liquor licenses. So is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass then. And takes us over to the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. I'll go ahead and pull item 12. And does any council member wish to pull 13 through 22? Okay, seeing none. And does anyone from the gallery wish to pull an item 13 through 22? Okay, none there. And on Zoom?
No one's on Zoom.
Okay. So we will pull item 12, and I'll read the remainder. Item 13 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a professional services agreement with Carlson Detman Consulting for the administration of civil service testing. Item 14 is a resolution approving and authorizing submission of an application for the American Rescue Plan for NEA funding for marketing, artist fees, and equipment for the Hearst Center for the Arts. Item 15 is a resolution in support of a grant application to the Otto Schoitz Foundation for the Cedar River Recreation Project. 16 is a resolution in support of REAP grant application to the Iowa DNR for the Cedar River Recreation Project. 17 is a resolution approving and authorizing an amendment to an entitlement community block grant for a program contract with IEDA relative to funding for the CARES Act. 18 is resolution approving and accepting 2 temporary easements for construction in conjunction with the FY 2021 CDBG sidewalk infill project. 19 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a community housing development organization subrecipient agreement with Habitat for Humanity for home funds for the acquisition and rehabilitation of 913 Bluff Street. 20 is a resolution receiving bids, accepting and approving the low bid of Cobalt Contracting for the public sidewalk infill project. 21 is a resolution receiving and filing bids and accepting the low bid of Cobalt Contracting for the 2021 sidewalk assessment project Zone 4. And finally, item 22 is a resolution receiving and filing the bids and approving and accepting the low bid of Benton Sand and Gravel for the 2021 Permeable Alley project. Is there a motion to approve these
So
items?
moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And that'll bring us back to item 12, which is a resolution rescinding Resolution 22,201, being a resolution approving and adopting public meeting protocols during the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there a motion to approve the item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. And I'll open it first for just a a staff comment on this. Attorney Rogers, in our staff meeting this morning, talked about what this would entail and why this discussion is required. We're certainly dealing with a change in our COVID status now, what's happening out in the community, but there are some concerns for what that means for our meetings and the governor's emergency proclamation, some changes that she put in. So Mr. Rogers can certainly address that better than I can here. So go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last emergency proclamation by the governor, she removed the provision that dealt with public meetings on the part of municipalities. And what that language served over the past several months is that public bodies did not have to show that meeting electronically was either impossible or impractical. The governor took care of that in the proclamations. With those removed now in the latest proclamation, then we're back to the statute on public meetings, and that impossibility, impracticality standard is back in place. And so in order to meet electronically at all, council would have to meet that burden to show that meeting in person, which is the preference under the code, would be impossible. We can't show impossibility, or impractical. What I'm recommending is council not attempt to make a showing that meeting in person is impractical at this point, not yet. And so for that reason then, as council has already been doing, it's been meeting in person. The only difference is for regular meeting format is council's allowed this sort of hybrid model where citizens may participate by phoning in using Zoom. What the effect of this resolution would not be to change the format of the meetings, which will remain in person, but rescinding this resolution would remove the Zoom option, and then so the entire meeting would be in person, such as these folks here are. There would no longer be the Zoom option. That would be the effect of rescission.
Okay, so if council votes in favor of this, then that would take Zoom away for the next meeting,
Mr.
correct?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz?
how would that apply to us up here? If we're traveling or business out of town, we can still Zoom in.
You can. In order for it to be an in-person meeting, there has to be a quorum of members present in person.
Yeah, so it would be a change for the public, basically, of them not being able to participate via Zoom. Is that correct, Mr. Rogers? Okay. So open it up for discussion about council's desires to do that. Councilmember Harding?
If we vote against it, does that mean, and let's say it failed, for example, would that mean that we could still have the public on Zoom, or according to the governor, we can't?
No,
Just to clarify.
It's within the option of council. If this resolution fails, then the protocols remain in place for the Zoom option. However, I think there's part of the current resolution talks about council meeting only remotely if in the red category. And so I don't think that's an option available to council anymore at this time.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I just want to make sure I understand. So if it fails, the public can still have the Zoom option with the rising numbers?
If it fails, then the Zoom option would remain in place. But having said that, with the resolution as it's now stated, we would not completely abide by the resolution in terms of the electronic meeting only if we're in the red category, because if we're not there, we're headed there. And we're obviously still meeting in person, which I'm still recommending we do at this time.
Okay, does that make sense then? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Councilor Harding?
It would seem prudent, since our numbers are in the red and they are going up, to at least allow the public to still have the Zoom option to mitigate the amount of people in here, and to also allow people that are immunocompromised to still see the Zoom thing. So I would support keeping it in place.
Which would be a no vote.
Which would be a no vote, yes.
Okay. Anything else? I know it's tricky. All right, so we've had the council discussion, and if there's nothing else from council, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Two voting yes, 5 voting nay, Mr. Mayor. Motion fails.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So we will retain the public option on Zoom, and we will have to also address down the road what the council's protocols are for high, because we can't follow the existing resolution in its entirety.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what set of circumstances would we get to the point that we do shut off Zoom?
So that would be a different discussion. I mean, that's something we would need to bring
That's
up. I mean, it's not on the agenda
Okay,
for
well.
tonight. But certainly, that could be a question for a referral to bring up how we want to move forward with
Kind of
that.
the opposite of what we just did, when do we turn it off? Because
Yeah.
we're keeping it on.
When do we turn it off again?
What criteria? Should I make,
Not yet is the answer.
So with that, it takes us over to item 23, which is there a motion to approve bills and
So moved.
claims for August 2nd?
So moved.
Okay. The motion and seconded, all in favor, or excuse me, this requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And do we have a council referral tonight? Councilmember Harding?
Yes, I'd like to make a referral to Committee of the Whole for a staff presentation regarding the addition of a full-time human rights director / position to the city of Cedar Falls.
Okay, so it's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. So motion and seconded, open for council discussion. That was, Dara was the second.
I have a question. Mr.
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus?
What is this position going to pay and how many hours are going to be involved?
That would, the referrals just to see the presentation and to get that information. So the answer is, I don't know. That's why I'm asking it to be referred to Committee of the Whole.
Just curious. That's all.
Okay, Councilmember DeBoer?
Aren't staffing and budget things generally done at goal setting? There have been in the past.
Is there a
18
requirement
years.
for that?
Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, do you want to speak on that?
There's no requirement. It's been a practice the council's employed for some time.
To do it at goal setting.
Councilmember Dara?
I would just think, based upon the fact that it's a pretty weighty discussion and significant, it'd be good to have that discussion before goal setting anyway, I would think. And to be honest, it's kind of timely with our task force's upcoming report. So I think it's a good idea. It doesn't hurt to have that discussion sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and also to note the departure of our HR manager, human resources manager, who has been filling some of that role. It would be good to know for the new person if that's going to be an expectation for their position or if it might go to a different position.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz?
Mr. Harding, can you clarify then, you want somebody to do more than what the outgoing person did? Is that what you're asking?
Correct. Oh, sorry. Correct. I was looking at asking for a presentation or the possibilities rather than a presentation of what it would look like to have a full-time human rights position on staff. Many of the human rights members of the commission, the HRC, expressed it just in the last meeting that they can't do what they need to do without a full-time person. And I echo what Frank said. There's, with the task force and everything going on, just trying to be proactive and get the conversation started on what would that look like for Cedar Falls to add that to our staffing, as yes, separate from the human resources.
And I guess I would ask then, what other cities do our size or bigger, if there's...
Sure, and that's
Any
something
of
that
the-
I would ask to have part of the discussion or the presentation.
I agree.
Just a little more discussion. Would it make sense to, after the report from the task force, to have that discussion and be prepared to do that? It's only 6 weeks away anyway. Just make it a part of a ongoing discussion. There'll be some recommendations from the task force, and I don't know that that's going to be one of them, but they seem to fit.
I'm okay with waiting till after the report. That's fine. This just gets it on the books as a referral.
Doesn't matter.
So do I understand right? Do you want to keep the motion as it is and just wait for the presentation until after the task force report?
That would be fine.
Okay, so you're not withdrawing the motion?
I'm not withdrawing the motion,
All right.
no.
So any other comments or questions about this referral?
Well, it just seems like it's putting the cart before the horse. You should probably get that task report first before you would ask the staff to do a presentation on something that they don't have that report yet on.
This would go ahead and set the motion for getting the numbers, the cities, the other stuff, and therefore we'd be ready to move. So,
Okay. So, yes, Councilor Miller.
I was just going to say, it seems like it makes sense to have that information prior to going into goal setting. I mean, it's been a hot topic all year. It's going to continue to be a topic, so at least understanding the details of it and what it's going to entail, give staff an opportunity to look at it in an expectation that that conversation is going to happen at goal setting. So it makes sense to me.
Okay. So with that, it's been motioned and seconded, and is this a roll call? Or is it just a voice vote? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that, by voice, that does pass. So we will have that forward to staff for a presentation to be developed. And any other referrals tonight?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Councilmember Cruz?
To item number 12, the resolution, if we could develop guidelines when we turn off Zoom to the public.
Okay. So that's a motion?
Motion to develop guidelines to turn off Zoom to the public.
Okay. And I would imagine we refer that to staff.
Mr. Rogers or who is.
Okay.
I second that.
So it's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion desired for that? Seeing none, then it's a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so we will develop, or have staff develop some draft guidance on what the protocols will be for ending the Zoom parts of our meetings and bring that forward to council for deliberation. So with that, any other referrals? Okay, seeing none, I'll now move us over to council updates. Do we have any updates tonight from council? Seeing none, then taking it to staff updates. Mr. Gaines, what do you have for us tonight?
Just real quickly, Mayor, one of the things that staff and I met a little bit today on is, as we talked about earlier, that with the numbers that are going back up with regard to the positive COVID rate, we're actually looking at what does that mean for staff and CDC guidance, and so all of those things. So we may be coming out with some new policies here in the next few days.
Okay, thank you. So stay tuned. And no other updates then? Okay, so with that, the next item that we have on the agenda is executive session, where executive session to discuss legal matters per Iowa Code Section 21.51C to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. And also property acquisition per Iowa Code Section 21.51J to discuss the purchase or sale of real estate where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price of the government body that would have to pay for the property or reduce the price the government body would receive for that property. So is there a motion to move us to executive session?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Then it requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So what that will mean is council will move back into the council chambers for this private discussion. You are more than welcome to stay until we return, but it might be some time, and all I will be doing is hitting the gavel to adjourn us. So if not, then thank you very much for your time, for joining us tonight, and would invite you certainly to participate in National Night Out activities around town tomorrow evening. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful night. We'll see you when we're done here.